Blood spurts across white bedsheets as a sword cuts through flesh and bone. Two women work with deadly precision, one gripping the victim's hair, the other sawing through his neck with unflinching determination. Their faces show no horror, no hesitation, only cold resolve. This is Judith Beheading Holofernes, painted in 1620 by Artemisia Gentileschi. But here's what makes this painting extraordinary. It wasn't created by some detached male artist romanticising violence from a safe distance. It was painted by a woman who knew exactly what it felt like to have her own agency stripped away, who understood the weight of a blade not just as symbol, but as salvation. Many consider this one of the most viscerally powerful paintings ever created. But I would argue it's something far more radical. It's the visual manifesto of a woman who refused to let the world define her as a victim. Look at Judith's face. This isn't the ethereal, distant expression we see in Renaissance depictions of biblical heroines. Her brow is furrowed with concentration, her jaw set with determination. She's not some divine instrument of God's will. She's a human being making a choice and living with the consequences of that choice in real time. Notice her sleeves, rolled up like a surgeon preparing for operation. Her muscular forearms strain against the resistance of bone and sinew. Artemisia doesn't hide the physical reality of decapitation behind artistic metaphor. This is manual labour, deadly, necessary, exhausting work. But what makes this painting so uniquely disturbing isn't just the violence, it's the complete absence of male gaze. There's no sexualization here, no titillation, just two women doing what needs to be done to survive. And then there's the maidservant, perhaps the most revolutionary figure in the entire composition. In every other artistic depiction of this scene, she cowers in the background, a passive witness to Judith's heroism. But Artemisia transforms her into an active participant, pinning down Holofernes' struggling body, while Judith completes her grisly task. The maidservant's steady grip on Holofernes' arm tells us that sometimes salvation comes not from singular heroism, but from women supporting women when the stakes are life and death. The painting is based on the Book of Judith, where a Jewish widow seduces and beheads the Assyrian general Holofernes to save her people. But Artemisia's Judith isn't just a biblical heroine. She's a woman who takes control, not with divine help or male rescue, but with strategy, courage, and a sword. She uses the assumptions made about her, her beauty, her supposed weakness, as weapons. And Artemisia captures that transformation with brutal, unflinching honesty. Artemisia returned to Judith's story obsessively throughout her career, creating at least 4 major works exploring different moments in the narrative. Her earliest version, painted around 1612 to 1613, shows the actual moment of decapitation with even more graphic detail. Her later work, Judith and Maidservant with Head of Holofernes from 1625, captures the tense aftermath as the women prepare to smuggle their trophy back to Bethulia. Each painting reveals different facets of Artemisia's understanding of female power. In 1611, 3 years before painting her first Judith, 17-year-old Artemisia was raped by Agostino Tassi, her father's collaborator and her painting instructor. When Orazio discovered the assault, he brought charges against Tassi, but the resulting trial became a public humiliation for Artemisia herself. She was subjected to gynecological examination to verify her virginity had been lost. She was tortured with thumbscrews, metal devices that crushed her fingers, to verify the truth of her testimony. The court treated her not as victim seeking justice, but as potential liar requiring coercion. Tassi was eventually convicted, but served less than a year in prison. Artemisia's reputation, however, was permanently damaged. Society labelled her as damaged goods, and her prospects for marriage were essentially destroyed. But something extraordinary happened in those years following the trial. Rather than retreating from public life, Artemisia threw herself into her art with unprecedented intensity. She became the first woman admitted to Florence's prestigious Accademia di Arte del Disegno. She established her own workshop, commanded high prices for her commissions, and painted subjects that male artists considered inappropriate for women. Her Judith paintings can be read as artistic autobiography, not literal self-portraits, but psychological explorations of what it means to reclaim agency after it's been violently stripped away. In depicting Judith's triumph over Holofernes, Artemisia was painting her own victory over a system that sought to define her by her trauma rather than her talent. What makes Artemisia's version of this scene so different from those painted by her male contemporaries? It's the complete absence of the male gaze. When Caravaggio painted the same subject, he emphasised Judith's horror at her own actions, her feminine revulsion at necessary violence. Artemisia's Judith feels no such ambivalence. She's not horrified by the blood on her hands. She's focused on completing her task efficiently and escaping safely. This is female power without apology, violence without masculine validation. The painting suggests that women's relationship to violence is fundamentally different from men's, not because women are naturally peaceful, but because women's violence is almost always defensive, strategic, born of necessity rather than conquest. You can now own a museum-quality reproduction of Artemisia's groundbreaking work through glassphantom.art. Link is in the description. Shipping is free worldwide, and every purchase helps support content like this. Artemisia Gentileschi transformed personal trauma into universal truth about courage, survival, and the price of justice. Her Judith doesn't just kill a general, she kills the idea that women must accept victimhood as their fate. But I want to hear from you. Does Artemisia's unflinching portrayal of violence change how you think about female agency in art? Do you see connections between her 17th century struggles and contemporary conversations about power and consent? What other historical artists do you think deserve re-examination through modern perspectives? Your thoughts make these discussions richer, so please share them in the comments. And if this deep dive into art history resonated with you, consider subscribing for more explorations of how personal experience shapes artistic revolution. Thank you for joining me in examining not just what makes great art, but what makes art that changes how we see the world.